Welcome to another episode of Mike's Money Picks. Today on the podcast, we have got a big one coming your way. It is the final regular Saturday main slate of college football DFS for the 2025 season. Talking about week 14, we are going to break down this main slate, all 12 games on it, tell you what you can expect from each game, as well as who needs to be in or out of your DraftKings lineups for these games, as well as any leans if you're looking to bet player props or sides and totals for these games. Like I said, it's crazy that we're in the last week of the regular season already, but we've got a lot of content for this week. Our Friday show is out now. We are going to be doing the live show Thursday night this week, where we hop on and we're going to talk about both the Friday and the Saturday night slates. Link is already up on YouTube. If you're subscribed, you'll know when we go live. It's going to be around 9:30 Eastern time. But yeah, what a journey it's been, from week 1 to week 14. Obviously, we're still going to have, conference championship week next week. We're still going to have bowl season and the college football playoff. But it's crazy that this is like the last big main slate that we're going to get. So we're going to go over all the information here to help you guys go out with a bang for the 2025 regular season. So without further ado, let's go ahead and end the introduction there. Let's go ahead and dive right into this slate. All right, game number 1 is a pretty good one for DFS purposes. We've got Houston taking on Baylor in a little Big 12 action. Baylor is 2.5-point favorites with a game total of 59.5 points, which means the implied total is about 31-28 in favor of the Bears. I got to say, y'all, that feels a little fishy to me. I don't really trust Baylor like that. And to me, Baylor being favored by 2.5 with home field advantage kind of implies that they're power rated about neutral as Houston. And I don't know, man. I kind of think Houston's better. Houston really struggled last week against TCU, against a team that was very blitz heavy. Baylor is not going to be that. And I really think Houston's going to have a lot of success. So let's go ahead and talk about this Houston offense. So Baylor on the season is rated out as a pretty good pass defense, but they haven't really defended mobile quarterbacks all that well. All in all, in the season, they allow about 23 fantasy points a game to opposing quarterbacks, and they're a bad rushing defense, ranking 125th nationally in rushing yards allowed. That is really good for Connor Wigman, who his main upside this season has been through his legs. He has thrown for 300 yards twice. He's rushed for 100 yards twice. Like, he's been able to get both those bonuses, but a large part of his scoring is coming on the ground. He's 8,800 because of how good this matchup is against Baylor, and I'm kind of buying into it, right? Like, you look in Big 12 play, and every single game that he's finished, he's put up 22 DraftKings points. That gives a level of security to Wigman because of the fact that he is going to get you rushing yards. He is going to get you some passing yards. And with there being a 28-point implied total, there's definitely multiple touchdown upside here for Wigman. I do like him at $8,800. I think he's one of the better quarterback plays on the slate. If you're not playing Wigman, go ahead and play his running back, Dean Connors. I don't think I would play both of them together because I do think that they kind of eat into each other's upside just a little bit. But Dean Connors is involved in the passing game. He's caught a receiving touchdown in each of the last 2 games. Actually, so maybe if he is that involved in the passing game, maybe you can stack both of them together. But he's shown the ability to succeed in any type of game environment. 23 DraftKings points last week against TCU when there was only 31 total points scored. And then he also has a 23-point performance earlier this season where there was 56 total points scored. So there's definitely some upside here for Dean Connors. $6,500, really good price tag. Playing running backs against Baylor, really just stacking guys against Baylor all season long has been a pretty good proposition. Now, for the receiver position for Houston, it's very straightforward to me right now. Amari Thomas is the guy that you want, and I'm really not even considering anybody else. He's now at 5 of 6 games over 18 DraftKings points, one of which was peaking at 37.9. He has scored exactly 6 touchdowns in those 6 games, so he's averaging a touchdown a game. He's good. He's the real deal. He's their wide receiver 1, gets targeted deep down the field, which is what we like. Tanner Koziel is the tight end. He's kind of the security blanket for this offense. He had a dud against TCU, $5,200. I would rather just pay up for Amari Thomas, but I do see the vision with Koziel as well. Now, on the Baylor side, I generally think this Houston defense is pretty good, but Baylor's implied to score 31 points. And if they're going to score 31 points right now, it's probably going to be on the arm of Sawyer Robertson. And this is a guy that we've seen multiple times this season hit the 300-yard passing bonus. This is a guy we've seen multiple times this season have a very serviceable DraftKings performances. He averages 26 DraftKings points per game at a salary of only $8,100. That's averaging over 3x, right? Like that's kind of what we're looking for when it comes to Sawyer Robertson. And he's been over 30 3 times this season and had another one of 29.9. So you can call it 4. Definitely a ton of upside here because really I do think that they're going to have to throw to win this game because the run game for Baylor has just been so pedestrian. It's been such a disappointment this season with Bryson Washington. Really, he was a guy that was getting drafted in the first round of best ball drafts, and now he's just not doing much at all. Last week against Arizona, I hyped him up as kind of like this post-hype sleeper GPP play, and he got 9 carries for 51 yards, right? So just not like the talent's there, the ability's there, but he just hasn't been able to put it all together this season because of kind of him being banged up and just never really getting fully healthy. Caden Knighton's been eating to his workload. Caden Knighton had 17 carries for 100 yards last week. That, to me, that's the guy you want in this backfield. But like I said, I don't really think you want anybody in this backfield because of how the not only Houston's run defense is pretty good, but Baylor's going to have to win this game by throwing. And if they are throwing, the guy that they are throwing the most to right now is Josh Cameron. 19 combined catches, 3 combined touchdowns over the last 2 weeks. He's $6,800. I think that's a very reasonable price tag for Cameron. We've seen him have 2 monster games this season. There's no reason that he can't make it a third here. And then Michael Trigg is actually the most targeted receiver for them all season long. But with him being a tight end, he has a very low ADOT. And he just never really goes off for these monster games. I think if you're playing cash, he's a very reasonable target, but I don't think he has a whole lot of GPP upside. Ashton Hawkins is weird because he was suspended for a half last week, right? And he only played a half, only had 1 catch for 8 yards, but yet his price went up. And it's a tougher matchup on paper than last week. So I don't know what DraftKings is doing with that price. Cole Wilson's a guy that's seen a big bump up in price. I've liked playing him all season long because he's been super cheap. I kind of think I got to hop off the train right here. So the way that everything lines up, it does seem pretty straightforward for Baylor. If I'm playing Sawyer Robertson, I'm going to be stacking him with wide receiver Josh Cameron. That is the ideal stacking partner in my mind. Next up, we've got another Big 12 battle between Texas Tech and West Virginia. This one is not appealing for DFS. Texas Tech's 23.5-point favorites with a game total of 53.5 points. I mean, the implied total is about 38-15 in favor of Texas Tech. And I got to be honest, y'all, that kind of sounds about right. Like, I just feel like Texas Tech, even though this game is at West Virginia, Texas Tech, knowing that, their season kind of comes down to this, they need to win this game to ensure that they make the college football playoff, win, lose, or draw in the Big 12 championship game. This is a Texas Tech team that does not fool around with lesser competition. They come out and they look to bury you quite quickly. Now, how they bury West Virginia is going to be up to them. West Virginia's been really bad against quarterbacks, really bad against the pass this season, ranking 128th nationally in passing yards allowed. But Behren Morton hadn't really been asked to do a whole lot lately. He hasn't hit 20 DraftKings points in a game in the last 5 weeks. And I don't know. I kind of think they're just going to look to run the ball, right? Like, you don't need to be aggressive here. You're going to be able to win this game by running. So why not just keep running? So I'm kind of out on Behren Morton, even though West Virginia does have a poor pass defense. So speaking of that running back position, Cameron Dickey's been great. Just stellar play all season long. He's $8,100 now, but that's a reasonable price tag. He's hit 23 DraftKings points in both of the last 2 games. Got no problem playing Dickey. I am a big Jacoby Williams guy, though. This is a guy who breaks off explosive runs. This is a guy who is used in the passing game. He also returns kicks. So you've got legitimate upside for a guy to break off 2 50-yard runs, catch 4 passes for 60 yards, and one of those is a touchdown. Then instantly you've got 25 DraftKings points just with that profile, right? He just accumulates fantasy points in a variety of ways, so much that he doesn't need a ton of volume to get there because he's just an explosive playmaker. I like the idea of playing him in GBPs at $6,000. It is getting pricey, but I do think that there's enough to go around between Dickey and Williams that Williams, with his ability to battle off an explosive, is able to get home in DFS. Now, at the wide receiver position, this is the problem with Texas Tech. They have 4 very evenly targeted receivers, even DraftKings scoring wide receivers. You never know which one it's going to be, so I just don't really have any interest in Douglas, Virgil, Carter, or Eakin. Sorry, guys. Now, on the West Virginia side, they do have a new starting quarterback, Scotty Fox. He started for about the past month or so, I want to say, and he's been okay. He's got a little bit of dual threat upside, but I don't think this game against Texas Tech is where you want to play a quarterback. Has any quarterback against Texas Tech all season been good? I don't think so. Scotty Fox, he's got a little bit of that Kyron Drones appeal from last week. We're going to talk a lot about the Kyron Drones play from last week on the live show, by the way. He's $5,300, which is super cheap. He's hit 21 DraftKings points in 3 of the last 4, but like against Texas Tech, this is by far the most tough matchup that he's seen. And this Texas Tech defense eats quarterbacks for breakfast. So I don't think I'm getting there, even though the cheap price tag is enticing. Now, at the running back position, they do only have like one guy left standing now that Dior Hubbard is officially out. Ty Edwards is still out. Now, Clay Ash could come back and make this a little more complicated, but it looks like it is Sincere Bowers' backfield to lose. Last week, he was the workhorse against Arizona State and put up 21 DraftKings points. Texas Tech is one of the top run defenses in the nation, though. So even though you got a bona fide workhorse back at $4,200, I'm not interested. And West Virginia does not have the passing volume to have me interested in playing a wide receiver in this game. Now, let's talk Miami and Pitt. This is a swing game in terms of like the whole season. Like the outcome of this game does have impact on the college football playoff discussion and who is going to be in it. Miami is 6.5-point favorites with a game total of 49.5 points, meaning the implied total is about 28-21 in favor of Miami. So Notre Dame week, which was 3 weeks ago, all we heard was about, oh, Pitt's got the best run defense in the country. Pitt hasn't let a running back do this all season long. And then we saw Jeremiah Love go nuclear against him because that's what Jeremiah Love does, right? So the Pitt run defense makes average running backs look pretty bad. Pitt's also played a fairly weak schedule. But also in that game, Notre Dame really hit Pitt for some explosive plays in the air, mostly to Malachi Fields. Pitt ranking 96th nationally in passing yards allowed on the season. That opens up a window where Carson Beck becomes playable in my mind. He's got 3 straight games over 21 DraftKings points. He hit 300 yards last week against Virginia Tech, 4 touchdowns in that game. He's not a runner at all, but when you play a pocket passer, you want him to have 300-yard upside. You want him to have multiple touchdown upside. I think Beck has it, and I think if Miami has an opportunity to unload here on Pitt and really beat them badly, I think they're going to. And so I think they're going to continue to be aggressive, continue taking downfield shots for Carson Beck. With Miami having a running back by committee now that Fletcher is back and that Pitt run defense being pretty good, I'm fully off of the Miami running back situation. I'm just not playing it. And at wide receiver, I kind of think there's only 2 guys worth mentioning. It's Malachi Toney and it's Keelan Marion. Malachi Toney is their downfield shot guy, but he's also their volume guy, which is a great combination to have, right? When you're not only getting opportunities for explosive plays, but a lot of opportunities as well. And he had 37.8 DraftKings points against Virginia Tech, 24.5 against NC State. Great profile, great play. One of the top wide receiver plays on the slate, in my opinion. And then Keelan Marion has kind of come out of nowhere and just been the wide receiver 2 that this offense has needed. He's over 12 DraftKings points in 4 straight games. He's caught at least 3 passes in all of them. He's gone over 70 yards in all of them. He's another guy that can make explosive plays down the field, which is how you want to target Pitt. And I think he's probably the best punt wide receiver on the slate at $3,400. Like, I don't even think it's even all that close. There's not a whole lot of cheap receivers to like on this slate. There's not a whole lot of cheap guys in general to like on this slate. I think Keelan Marion is one of them. So now talking about the Pitt side, like, I don't know what to expect out of Pitt because you look back at that Notre Dame game and the Notre Dame defense made them look really, really badly. And it's because Notre Dame had an advantage with their offensive line against Pitt's O-line, so they were able to get pressure. And Chris Ash did a really good job of disguising coverages, mixing up looks, mixing up the defense, and just not letting Mason Heinschel set in. When you look at what Miami does, Miami's got one of the best pass rushes in the country, but they don't really do a whole lot creatively defensively. They're just like, all right, yeah, we're going to rush our 4 guys. We're going to get home and we're going to hope that we can cover for that long. So I don't know if they're going to have the same amount of confusion on Mason Heinschel that Notre Dame did, but I think there's a chance because I think there's a chance he's just going to get pounded in this game. So I think that makes him a very high risk, high reward play at $7,400. He's shown the ability to be a good quarterback in DFS. He's also shown the ability to just absolutely like tank against Notre Dame. So wide range of outcomes for Mason Heinschel. Now, the running back position is kind of twofold that we got to talk about it for Pitt. They've got Desmond Reed, who's great, but he's questionable for this game. I don't know if he plays or not. I've tried to do all the research I can. I can't find anything on it. If he does not, Jakirian Turner is the new workhorse back. He was great against Georgia Tech, putting up 34 DraftKings points. I don't think he's going to be able to do that against Miami, though, but I think he's worth a look in your player pool. I don't think it's likely, but I think he's worth a look in your player pool because I don't think that they're going to beat this Miami team by throwing the ball 60 times. And speaking of them throwing, when they throw, you don't know who they're throwing to. It's a lot of wide receivers that are getting involved right now. Johnson and Williams are both kind of alternating big weeks. Holmes, the tight end, scored a touchdown last week. Katoris Hicks is still getting used. Deuce Span's still getting used. I don't really want any part of this Pitt passing attack. Now, game number 4 is the game. Ohio State heading to Ann Arbor to take on Michigan. Ohio State 10.5-point favorites, game total of 43.5, meaning the implied total is about 27-17 in favor of Ohio State. And y'all, there's apparently going to be some weather in this one. Might be a snow game for the game this year, much like it was in 2021, I want to say. Was that the famous Hassan Haskins, Blake Corum game? I think it was. I might have my year wrong, though. Anyway, this is a total cross-off for me. Just a total incomplete cross-off. Julian saying, good real-life quarterback, not the best DFS quarterback going up against a Michigan defense that's really good. Bryce Underwood on the Michigan side, that price tag is super appealing. He's $5,200. He has rushing upside. He's a big-time prize recruit, but I worry that this Ohio State defense is going to be able to do to him what they did to Arch Manning back in week 1. So I'm kind of out on that. Michigan's got some running back injuries. I'm out on that situation in general. At wide receiver, Ohio State, we don't know who's going to play, and I don't think that they're going to get enough passing volume in general to be viable at their high price tags, even if they do play. I'm kind of interested in Alex Marsh on Michigan. He's turned into their new wide receiver 1. He's been great. 4 games out of the last 6, he's been over 15 DraftKings points, but I don't think you have to do that. I'm kind of out on it. So like I said, I think this game's probably going to be entirely a cross-off for me. Now, Missouri is taking on Arkansas, and this is not a cross-off. Like this is I'm going to load up heavily on Missouri in this game. Missouri's 2.5-point favorites, game total of 55.5, meaning the implied total is about 29-27 in favor of the Tigers. Look, if you just play guys going against Arkansas every single week, you'd probably be up on the season. Like, let's be honest. Like, you think Jeremiah Love, he had 40 points against him. Last week, Arch Manning had 40 points against him. I know there's some in there that I'm missing. Like the Memphis quarterback, Brendan Lewis, really tore him up. Like, there's just not a whole lot going on for this Arkansas defense, and it makes it really easy to target against them. Now, on the Missouri side, well, more on that Arkansas defense first. They allow an average of 28 fantasy points a game to quarterbacks. They're 123rd nationally in passing yards allowed. They're 110th in rushing yards allowed. So they're a little bit like Burger King. They'll let you have it your way. However you want to score on them, they will let you do that. Bo Perbula came back from injury against Missouri or against Oklahoma. Did not have the same rushing upside that he's had all season long. That's the only thing that disappointed me is like he was not mobile in that game. And I know the Oklahoma defense is a really tough matchup. Arkansas is not. So the question you got to ask yourself is, can Bo Perbula hit value at $6,100 if he's not going to run? And I think what that means is it puts it in a situation to me where I'm less likely to pay Perbula and more likely to play the skill players in this offense, like Ahmad Hardy, who is one of the best running backs in the country. He's like the only G5 transfer up at running 2-3 years out, I think you could even say. Definitely this year. He had 50 DraftKings points against Mississippi State 2 weeks ago. Obviously, Oklahoma put the clamp down on him last week. But if there's no mobility for Perbula, holy crap, that was a tongue twister. If there's no mobility for Perbula, Hardy is going to have a big workload. He's going to have a lot of success. I'm buying into Ahmad Hardy at $7,500. And I'm also buying into Kevin Coleman as the wide receiver 1 for this team at $4,700. And a big reason why is because you look at his games when Perbula's played: 21 against Oklahoma, 25 against Vanderbilt, 26 against UMass, 31 against Kansas. He's had 4 games of more than 20 DraftKings points when Perbula was the quarterback. It's over half, right? Or about half. I think it's actually exactly half, right? So I'm willing to buy into that at $4,700 against a bad defense, right? So I'm here on Coleman. If you want to take shots at the other receivers, Olabude and Johnson are both there, but I think that the one you want is Coleman. Now, on the Arkansas side, I'm out on Taylon Green. I've been saying this all season long. He's very athletic, very talented, but I think he's a G5 merchant. All of his best games come against bad defenses, and Missouri's not a bad defense, y'all. This Missouri defense is pretty good. So I'm kind of out on Taylon Green. He's got a lot salary to make up for. I'm out on the running backs for Arkansas. What I do like is I do like Raylan Sharp. He is turning into the wide receiver one for this team, over 10 DraftKings points in each of the last 4 games. And his worst one was against Texas last week, and he still had 4 for 65, right? Like, this team is getting him the football early and often. $4,300. This game has shootout potential. I think it's a really good spot for Raylan Sharp. And then I don't mind the tight end Rohan Jones either. $3,600. I think he's far from the worst punt play on the slate, over 9 DraftKings points in 4 straight. All right, this next game. Oh boy. All right, let's go ahead and get started. LSU taking on Oklahoma. Oklahoma is 10.5-point favorites with a game total of 36.5 points, meaning the implied score is about 23-13 in favor of Oklahoma. I could not be more clear that this game is entirely a cross-off for me, and it should be entirely a cross-off for you. These two offenses are inept, and these two defenses are really good. And either one of these teams, if they jump out to a 7-point lead, they're going to be content to just sit on that lead and run the clock out. And that is not good for DFS. John Mateer, ever since the hand injury, has not put up more than 21 DraftKings points in a game. And that topped last week at Missouri was 20.9, mainly because he ran for 60 yards. The only thing I think you could make a semblance of an argument for is Deion Burks at receiver for Oklahoma. This is a really good, really talented wide receiver who's $3,900. But even then, he plays for an inept offense in a game that is going to be just an absolute slog. Like, I'm telling you, this is like the Browns playing the Jets level of a slog. Like, you play NFL DFS, you ain't targeting no Browns-Jets game, right? Like, this is just not good. Just don't play it. Just don't. So now, that takes us halfway through the slate. Let's go ahead and take a quick breather, and then we're going to get on with the next half. Now, before we continue, I do want to mention there are places where you can get more information from me. First off, you can follow me on Twitter at Mike's Money Picks. It's where I tweet out all updates for the show, as well as I'm more than happy to answer any lineup questions if you reach out to me on the Twitter. Also, I'm in the Fantasy Corner Discord. It's also a great place to ask for lineup advice, lineup questions, not just from me, but a whole community of a bunch of really good, really smart people who play DFS for a lot of different sports, including college football to chat. And there's always jumping on a college football Saturday. If you're looking for people to just bounce ideas off of, talk lineups, talk strategy, or keep up to date on injury news, or just have fun sweating it out and, cracking jokes and watching the games together, Fantasy Corner Discord is a place for you, and it is entirely free. And if you want to know who actually makes my college football DFS lineups, head on over to the Patreon. Patreon.com/Mike's Money Picks is where I post all my core plays for all of college football slates. I am not just going to sit here and guarantee that you can, play those guys and win thousands of dollars. It's not that easy. What I can guarantee is you're going to get well-researched, well-thought-out takes with not just the information, but the how and the why that can help you get better at playing college football DFS. There's also college basketball plans on there as well. All right, let's go ahead and pick back up where we left off with Cincinnati taking on TCU. TCU is 3.5-point favorites in this game. Game total of 57.5 points, meaning the implied total is about 30-27 in favor of TCU. So on the Cincinnati side, the TCU defense has actually been kind of good lately. And Brendan Sorsby is kind of like he's kind of fizzling out a little bit, if I could say so. He hasn't topped 26 DraftKings points in 3 games, and he was doing that quite regularly before, right? He is a dual threat. He can run, but I don't know, man. I just don't have good vibes. They're on a 3-game losing streak. Just haven't looked the same on offense. I just don't know if I can go here. I love Sorsby. He's made me some money this season, but I don't know if I can go there. At the running back position, this is an avoid for me. You've got 2 running backs in Pryor and Walker that have different profiles, but they're both going to eat up some work. Walker is the workhorse, the plotter, and he gets a lot of usage in the passing game, which hurts Pryor, who is kind of the more explosive guy that's going to probably see less volume but have more of a chance to break off a long run or long catch. It's just not really what I'm looking for here on this slate. I think there's better running back plays out there. At the wide receiver position, here is a pretty clear-cut scenario for Cincinnati. Their wide receiver one is Cyrus Allen, right? He is the guy that gets the most volume consistently, but that doesn't mean he's the only guy that gets looks. Jeff Caldwell and Caleb Goody have both shown that they are guys who can rip off explosive plays. Caldwell has scored touchdowns in back-to-back weeks. That's why he's up to 4,100. And then Noah Jennings is also not a total zero. He's going to play some snaps as well. And Joe Royer, the tight end, has been a little quiet this season, but he had some games last year that really made me believe he could be a top-tier fantasy tight end. So I think the answer here, if you're playing Sorsby, is you stack him with Allen, but also like you kind of got to consider Caldwell, Goody, Royer, or Jennings just because they do have involved roles in the offense. I think Caldwell would probably obviously be number 2 for me, given what he's done in recent weeks. Now let's talk about the TCU side. So TCU is going up against a Cincinnati defense that I have previously said, oh, Cincinnati's a bad secondary. Target the passing game against Cincinnati. And then BYU last week had LJ Martin mess around and run for over 200 yards on him. And now Cincinnati ranks outside the top 90 in both rushing yards allowed and passing yards allowed. So this is a defense where you could really, like Fleetwood Mac said, go your own way and just kind of take what you want on defense, right? So Josh Hoover is down to $6,600 because Josh Hoover has not topped 20 DraftKings points since October 11th, but it's still in there somewhere. And if there were a spot where Josh Hoover could hit, he could hit it against Cincinnati, against this poor secondary. I think that this is a really good spot for Josh Hoover with a really good price tag at $6,600. Josh Hoover is one of my favorite cheaper quarterback plays on this slate, and he does have some clear stacking partners. Now, the run game for TCU, look, I'm going to keep it real with you. I haven't played a TCU running back since Kendre Miller was there, and I don't think I really regretted it. They just never really have enough running volume for one guy to hit, right? Now, Jeremy Payne, really good last week, 18 for 103 against Houston. That's a tougher matchup than Cincinnati is. So maybe you can make an argument to bring the Payne here in week 14 at $5,100. And then also John Denman randomly saw 11 carries in that game. So it's still a committee, right? Like it's Payne and Denman, but I don't know. I might could be talked into Payne. There's just not a lot of cheap running backs to like on this slate, and there's enough there with Payne that I might be coerced into having him in my player pool. Now at the wide receiver position, this is pretty darn cut and dry. About as cut and dry as a wide receiver position as you can get. Eric McAllister leads the entire slate in targets with 99. That's about 10 a game. Well, a little under 10 a game. I'm a high school math teacher. I should be better at math than that. But he's been super consistent, right? He's had the explosive games, like when he put up 54 against TCU, like when he put up 34 against Kansas State. But pretty much since that SMU game where he put up 54. I think I misspoke and said that was TCU. It's late at night, y'all. Since that game where he put up 54, he's only been under 17 DraftKings points once. That is a level of consistency that's pretty much unmatched amongst all the wide receivers on this slate. And so I'm kind of here for McAllister at $7,900. I don't think I would play him as a one-off. I think I would want to play him stacked with Hoover because his path to an explosive game lies with Hoover because Hoover's a non-running quarterback. But I do like the idea of getting a McAllister at $7,900. Dwyer at $6,100 has had some explosive games, 3 games over 27 DraftKings points this season. And he has 82 total targets on the season. So 80, not 82. But he's not a total nothing, but it just feels so much like the big games are so much fewer and far between than Eric McAllister. Like he feels a step behind McAllister, whether he is or not. And then you've also got the psychopath Joseph Manjack. I call him the psychopath because he does not wear any accessories. It's like you started playing Road to Glory mode on College Football 26 and just wanted to get right into the games and didn't do any customization. And y'all, those gloves really help. As somebody who wore gloves when I played intramurals in college, those gloves quite help. You just feel like you can just catch a ball anywhere. And Manjack chooses not to take advantage of those gloves, which is strange. Anyway, he had 9 for 95 last week. He's not a total nothing either at $4,200. You could certainly do a Hoover double stack with some combination of McAllister, Dwyer, and Manjack. Next game up, we've got Oregon taking on Washington. Little old Pac-12 rivalry that's now turning into a Big Ten rivalry, which feels weird, but it is what it is. It's a pretty cool instance to me that they're playing this game on Thanksgiving weekend when both these teams kind of left their old rivals in the dust, and they're also playing on Thanksgiving weekend. There's the battle for the Pac-12, Oregon State and Washington State this weekend, and it didn't end up on the DraftKings slate. Anyway, I digress. Oregon is 6.5-point favorites in this game. with a game total of 50.5 points, meaning the implied total is about 28-22 in favor of the Ducks. And here's the problem with Oregon. I talked about this a little bit last week when they played USC, is like, no matter what the matchup is, no matter what the implied total is, Oregon's offense is so darn spread out amongst so many skill players, so many different ways of scoring points, that it really makes it hard for one guy to get there in value. And you end up with a scenario like last week where, or really the last 2 weeks, where Dante Moore has put up 23 and 17 DraftKings points, and the team scored 42 points in each of those games. He's only accounted for 4 total touchdowns, and they have scored 12, right? Like, there's just not really a whole lot of explosive DFS games that happen with this team because of how spread out the offense is. And it carries over to the running back position quite directly, right? Like Noah Whittington, Jordan Davis, and De'Aaron Hill, they're all going to see carries. They all have touchdown upside. They're all overpriced for being in a committee. At the wide receiver position, this is where it does get a little bit simpler. If DeCorian Moore is out, Kenyon Sadiq has been eating with DeCorian Moore out. Back-to-back games over 23 DraftKings points. I have a ton of interest in Sadiq if we get early news that Moore is out. But if Moore's in, this is a mess. Now, Malik Benson, to his credit's also been pretty good with Moore out. He's only 4,500, but like, it's kind of a mess. I'm kind of just not all that interested. Now, on the Washington side, I've banged the drum all season long for Damon Williams. He's kind of like one of my guys at quarterback. It's been like Haynes King, Damon Williams, and CJ Bailey have been the guys where I've just kind of banged the drum for them all season long for, hey, play this guy in DFS. Hey, this guy's actually good. Hey, this guy's going to get a bag next year somewhere at his current school or elsewhere. And I really like his game. I really like what he does. But I don't know if I buy into him like against this Oregon defense. Like, you look at him against tough defenses, 13 against Wisconsin, 3 against Michigan, and 4 against Ohio State. That's DraftKings scoring, not touchdowns, not anything else. 3 DraftKings points against Michigan, 4 against Ohio State, 13 against Wisconsin. That ain't going to cut it. And so, yes, is there some upside there? Yes. Do I love this guy? Yes. But you don't play this guy against good defenses, and Oregon's a good one. And I kind of feel the same way about running back Jonah Coleman. Like, he's supposed to be back this week, but he's carried the ball 9 times in the last 2 games. Or I'm sorry, he got hurt in that Wisconsin game, so that's not quite fair. But like, I don't know, $6,600 for another guy that hasn't done well against good defenses. And then now he's kind of dealing with Adam Muhammad, kind of taking his lunch a little bit. Adam Muhammad has been the workhorse running back. He's only $5,200, but again, it's going up against a tough defense. So I don't know. Like, I'm just not here for it. There's better plays out there. At the wide receiver position, I do like the idea of playing Boston. Boston's a really good receiver. 20 DraftKings points or more in 3 of the last 4, over 19 in 4 of the last 5, 2 games over 30, consistently targeted. One of the most targeted wide receivers on the slate, 80 on the season. Like, good receiver, and we just saw good receiver Mekhi Lemon really tear up Oregon. Maybe there's a path to play in Boston, but man, there's some other really good high-priced receivers out there. I think Boston, in a world where McAllister and Tony are really good plays, Boston might be a little bit of like ownership GPP leverage type at $6,800, because I think he's certainly going to be less played than those 2 I just named. Next up, let's talk about Penn State and Rutgers. Penn State is 13.5-point favorites with a game total of 55.5. Penn State is playing this game for the chance to get to bowl eligibility, which is not something that I thought I would be saying on August 1st. I thought that this Penn State team was going to be back in the college football playoff. I looked at their schedule. I'm like, holy crap, how could this team lose more than 3 games? And they did. And yeah, I actually had a parlay at the start of the season where it was Penn State, Notre Dame, Texas, and Georgia to make the playoff, and I might get 1 out of 4 home in that, which is crazy. Anyway, Penn State's implied to win this game 34-21, and Ethan Grunkemeyer has not been good from a fantasy perspective as a starting quarterback for this team. He's only $5,400, but he hasn't had a game north of 14 DraftKings points. He's been a handoff machine. And so if Penn State is implied to score 34 points and their quarterback ain't doing it with his arm, then it really makes me interested in playing the running backs Nick Singleton, and Katron Allen. Did you know that Katron Allen is now the all-time leading rusher in Penn State history? Just an incredible stat considering he's been a part of a running back committee his entire career. It just goes to show you how efficient and effective both Singleton and Allen have been in their 4 years. Allen's now at a point where since the Aller injury, he's put up 31 DraftKings points or more in 3 of those 5 games. So I'm here for Allen. He's the guy that's getting more consistent workload. I think he's one of the top running back plays on the slate. I would probably still rather play Ahmad Hardy, but I think Allen is up there. And then Singleton at $6,400. He's not getting as much workload, but he's breaking off explosives. This is kind of the profile that we saw of Singleton the last 2 years. He's over 24 DraftKings points in 2 of the last 3. So I think he's not a bad option either. And then I'm kind of here for playing Tripper Pena at wide receiver. With this offense having limited passing success, there's been not a whole lot to go around, but a lot of it's been going to Pena, who's got at least 4 catches in the last 3 games. Only 1 touchdown on the season. It's kind of been unlucky in terms of touchdown equity. He's only $4,300. Like, there's not a whole lot of cheap guys to like on this slate. I think he's one of them. For Rutgers, I'll save you some time here. I'm not playing Ethan Kaliak-Manis, the Greek rifle. I'm not playing running back Antoine Raymond going up against a Penn State really solid front 7. I think the way you could play this Rutgers team, knowing that they're implied to score 3 touchdowns, knowing that they're going to be trailing most this game, you can play these 2 receivers, Strong and Duff. Like, they're just super consistent options. Now, granted, Strong had pretty much no contribution against Ohio State. Duff wasn't much better. But when you look at what they've done in totality of the season, they've both had big games. They've both been very steady contributors to this offense. I think you can take a shot at them in your player pool. I don't know if I'll get there, but I get it. Now, next up, let's talk about Vanderbilt and Tennessee. Y'all, this is going to be the game that you're going to want to stack on this Saturday slate. This is probably my favorite game on this slate. Tennessee's 2.5-point favorites with a game total of 65.5 points, meaning that the implied total is about 34-31 in favor of the Volunteers. This is just such a good spot for everybody involved, right? On the Vanderbilt side, they've got Diego Pavia, who's trying to make like this late season Heisman campaign, and he might pull it off because his play on the field recently has been crazy good. Like last week, basically, I ended up playing a lot of Kyron Drones last week for Virginia Tech. We talked about him as the key misprice on the slate. I played a ton of Kyron Drones because I wanted the ability to get to Pavia and Arch Manning. And dang it, if I wasn't every bit right in wanting to get to Pavia and Arch Manning. Pavia against Kentucky put up 52 DraftKings points. It's his 3rd straight game over 40 DraftKings points from the quarterback position. Now, the Tennessee defense is okay. I think they're a little shaky in the secondary. We saw Gunnar Stockton put up north of 30 DraftKings points against them earlier in the season. But Pavia, as well as he's playing, and if you're playing multiple lineups, especially considering his rushing upside, I don't see how you full fade him, right? Like if you're playing one lineup, I get it because it's hard to fit him in at his salary $9,600. But if you're playing multiple lineups, you got to find a way to get him in your player pool. You got to find a way to play Pavia. So now the question becomes, how do you play Pavia? And I think the way you could do it is I think you could play a game stack with the Tennessee side, or I think you could kind of follow the mold of Kyron Drones from last week where you find another cheap quarterback to kind of even the salary out and then see if you can get some of your favorite high-priced running backs and receivers. Because that was what I did last week was I played Pavia with Kyron Drones so that way I could get up to the UConn FAU guys that I like so much, and they all went off. And so my Pavia lineups, even though they had the anchor that was Kyron Drones, I ended up cashing a pretty good amount because Pavia and those skill players I got right. So that's kind of the 2 ways that I want to build with Pavia this week is I want to go Pavia with a game stack or Pavia with cheap quarterback that allows me to get the skill players that I like. With Pavia taking up so much of the offense's equity on his own, I'm not interested in playing Cedric Alexander this week. Sorry, bud. Now at the wide receiver position for Vanderbilt, this is where it gets interesting. They kind of have 3 options. And you never really know which one it's going to be on a given week, which is kind of annoying. But at the same time, at least it's only 3 options. Like, that's kind of like the good with the bad, right? Like, it's going to be Stowers or Sherrill or Richardson. You just don't really know which one. Stowers is up there in price now. He's the tight end. He had back-to-back games of 27 DraftKings points or more before the dud against Kentucky last week, but he still caught 6 passes. They just only went for 36 yards, and he didn't score. Junior Sherrill's actually the most targeted Commodore over the course of the season. 3 straight games over 15 DraftKings points. Makes a lot of sense to me. Ty Richardson is the boom or bust playmaker for this offense. Had 42 against Vanderbilt, 6 for 159 and 3 touchdowns. He was very much shaping up to be their wide receiver one at the start of the year, cooled off in the middle portion, and is now heating back up. So it's going to be one of them 3. I don't think you need to double stack Pavia, but I do think you do want to single stack him with one of Stowers, Sherrill, or Richardson. Was difficult to say. Now, the reason why I like game stacks of this game so much is because I think the Vanderbilt defense is actually kind of bad. They just let up like 40 points to Auburn a few weeks ago. And when you look at their totality on the season, they allow 22 fantasy points per game to quarterbacks, and they played some pretty bad ones. They're 122nd nationally in passing yards allowed. And last year, we saw the Heupel offense with Nico at quarterback absolutely shred this Vanderbilt defense. And so I think this could be a really good spot to go to Joey Aguilar, a guy who's, not really been needed each of the last 2 weeks. But against Oklahoma, he put up 27 DraftKings points. Against Kentucky, he put up 30. And against Georgia, he put up 37. So the potential for a big game is there. I think that schematically, Heupel offenses are going to give Vanderbilt trouble. And I think this game environment with being the highest total on the slate is really good for Aguilar. Now, I'm not interested in Deshaun Bishop. He really helped me out last week, but he's going up against a Vanderbilt run defense that's 22nd in the country in rushing yards allowed. And then let's talk about the wide receiver position. With Tennessee, you got 2 clear guys to look at. And to me, it's even better than only having 3 guys to look at. It's only having 2 guys to look at, right? It's Braylon Staley and it's Chris Brazzell. So Staley has been pretty darn consistent prior to last week against Florida. He had 5 straight games over 16 DraftKings points, 5 straight games with 5 catches or more, 4 touchdowns in that span. Super consistent option prior to last week. Last week was just a dud. And then you've got Brazzell, who is a little more boom bust, but the booms have really boomed. 36 against East Tennessee State. Okay, FCS opponent, cool. 44 DraftKings points against Georgia. Most a wide receiver has put up on them all season long. And then 26 against Kentucky. So the big game potential is there from Brazzell. He's really their big play guy. Well, I guess they're kind of both big play guys, but I really like what I've seen out of him. I really think this is a good spot for him. If you want to look to get really creative, you might could go with Mike Matthews, who does have a consistent role in this offense, or even Ethan Davis, who went 5 for 72 and a touchdown in relief of an injured Miles Kitselman against Florida. Like I said, there's so few punts at the wide receiver position on this slate. Ethan Davis, he's a tight end, would certainly fit that bill. All right, last game of the day is between Florida State and Florida. So this is like the crossroads game for both these programs, right? Like you've got Florida State saying that they're keeping their head coach and they're heading into next year with that. And they got a lot of guys on this roster. They're either graduated or probably going to transfer out. For Florida, they've got an interim head coach right now. They don't know who the next head coach is going to be, and it's their last home game. And so there's just a whole lot going on here that create an environment that's going to be really difficult to predict. And so Florida is 1.5 point favorites with a game total of 51.5, meaning that the implied total is about 26 to 25 in favor of the Gators. On the FSU side, Florida's defense has been trending downwards in both directions. They rank 85th and 86th in rushing and passing yards allowed. So they're pretty consistently balanced on defense, perfectly balanced, as all things should be. And they've got Tommy Castellanos coming to town. He is a dual threat quarterback. He's been just so up and down this season. I don't think I can get here. I'd rather just play a guy like Aguilar for a similar price tag. At running back, look, if I knew which Florida State running back it was going to be, I'd be all over him. But I just don't know. Singleton Jr. is hurt. He's questionable. Don't know if he's going to play. And then last week, we saw just this massive committee with Chroma and Lucas and Sawchuk and Roydell Williams all seeing carries. And that's just not good for DFS. And so kind of out. I'm not going to try to pick between those 4, and I don't think any of those 4 are really great options. If Singleton was back, I think I'd play Singleton, but I'm not here for the other 4. The guy that I am going to play on this offense is Deuce Robinson. He's just been an absolute machine. I asked this question in the Fantasy Corner Discord. Is there a wide receiver in the country that is more taller than his quarterback than Deuce Robinson, because Tommy Castellanos is probably about 5'8". Deuce Robinson is probably about 6'7". So I think you get, I'm obligated. I teach high school. I know that a little bit. So I kind of think Deuce Robinson is, much significantly taller than Tommy Castellanos, but it makes him such an easy target because he's just so big. He towers over all these defensive backs. Consistent fantasy performer as well. I like him at $6,400. I think he's one of the safer wide receiver plays on the slate. On the Florida side, DJ Lagway is finally priced where he should be. We've kind of talked about how the last 2 years, DJ Lagway has kind of been like sneaky bad of a DFS play. He just doesn't really have a whole lot of ceiling games. This season, he had one against my Longhorns and hasn't really done a whole lot ever since. And so, with Lagway, no one knows where he's going to school next year. He might hit the portal. If not, he might need to impress a new coaching staff. So he's certainly motivated to come out and play well in this game. And he's $5,400. I mean, I could see an argument for playing him in a GPP, but man, that's kind of reaching a little bit. I do think at running back, Jaden Ball has a little bit of my interest, but I kind of put him in the Denzel Boston category where amongst the high-priced running backs, he's clearly not the best play, but nobody's going to play him, which makes him really intriguing as this ownership pivot option at $7,000 in the last game of the day, where he's been pretty darn consistent, putting up 17 DraftKings points in 5 straight. So I don't mind the play for Jaden Ball. And then at wide receiver, this wide receiver position has been a dumpster fire for them ever since they've had all the injuries. And what you're left with now is a situation where Vernell Brown is back active, but he didn't do much against Tennessee. J. Michael Sturdivant has kind of been trying to be the wide receiver one, but we've seen him try to be a wide receiver one in his career. It's never really worked. TJ Abrams is a guy that I've played on a few night slates, and he had a pretty good game against Ole Miss, but goose egg last week against Tennessee. Don't know if I can go back, but if you're looking for a punt receiver, there's one. All right, that is going to do it for this Saturday main slate, which concludes our coverage of the 2025 college football regular season in terms of main slates, which is kind of sad. But anyway, if this video helped you out in any way, please make sure you hit the like button if you're watching on YouTube, rate and review if you're listening on audio. All of those help me out a ton. It helps the algorithm, help this video show up, which helps grow the community, and I really do appreciate it when you guys do that. And make sure you tune into our live show, which is going to be Thursday night around 9:30 Eastern time. We're going to talk both the Friday and the Saturday main slates. So make sure you tune into that. If you're subscribed, you'll be notified when we go live. And if you're subscribed, you can also be with our college football content through the rest of the season, including bowl season and the college football playoff, and all of our college basketball content all the way up through the Final Four. But anyway, that's going to do it here for this episode, guys. Hopefully we gave you guys all the information you need in order to build some winning lineups, player prop bets, or bets and parlays for this set of games. So thank you guys for tuning into this point. Best of luck to you guys on this week 14 main slate, and I will see you guys next time.